Game Pass is awesome, plain and simple, and this is coming from a PlayStation guy. It's a subscription service that actually provides nearly endless value, and there's pretty much no strings attached. You want to play a huge library of games that date back console generations? You can do that. You want to subscribe for only a month to play a newly released game? You can do that too. Game Pass is great, but it all leads to a fascinating question and the main topic of this video. What is the future of Game Pass? Because like all subscription services, there's a growing issue with it, specifically its inevitable price hikes. But before I dig into that issue, let's begin by looking at its pricing as well as Xbox's revenue from it. There are two tiers to Game Pass, with their lower tier costing $9.99 and the higher one costing $16.99. It's a good value and tons of gamers use it, especially since PC gamers can use Game Pass as well. Up until recently, there were no exact financial numbers to illustrate how Game Pass was doing, but reports from a couple months ago cleared that up. Those reports detail that Xbox receives approximately $230 million in revenue from Game Pass. In other words, they make about $2.76 billion per year in revenue.
And how can you not make money with such a brilliant idea?
But as most know, revenue is not profit. We don't know exactly the cost it is to maintain services like Game Pass, but there are many expenses to consider. The largest of which would be paying developers extraordinary amounts of money to keep their game on Game Pass, where it is then offered for free. There are smaller games like Lies of P, where perhaps they project 1 million sales on Xbox, so certainly the price Xbox needs to offer that studio is whatever the equivalent of those sales projections would be, or close enough to it. In other words, if Lies of P was projected to sell enough copies to make $40 million in revenue, then Xbox would need to compensate the Lies of P studio at least around $40 million since the game is being offered for free. But then there are studios like Bethesda who released Starfield, which is an Xbox and PC exclusive. Bethesda is owned by Microsoft, but they still need to be reimbursed for development costs, etc. After its launch, Starfield had over 10 million players, but most of those were likely on Game Pass, meaning most did not pay retail value for the game. Essentially, with Xbox exclusive studios, Xbox is not only missing out on sales revenue, they also need to reimburse their studios for all their development costs. It's a double whammy. Additionally, you start considering the sheer amount of new games that release each year, and you can start to see why the cost for Game Pass is likely substantially high, even with Game Pass revenue in the billions each year. Is Game Pass suffering a net loss? No, but whether or not Game Pass is making a substantial profit remains a mystery, which leads to the next question. Is Game Pass sustainable? I think it's safe to say it is as of now. Xbox clearly has no plans of stopping this service. It's their ace in the hole they always bring up against PlayStation. However, a better question is whether or not Game Pass will be sustainable in the future. So now we come to the main issue, its inevitable price increase. Like Netflix and every other subscription service, as time goes on, prices will go up. Unfortunately, it's unavoidable. Even Phil Spencer says it's inevitable. Just a few months ago, the ultimate option for Game Pass went up by $2 to $16.99. Is it the biggest price increase ever? No, but it's an extra $24 a year, and that adds up, especially for gamers on a budget relying on Game Pass. One way to alleviate these growing costs is to sell more consoles. If Xbox had more consoles, then they would get more people on their platform, inevitably causing more people to join Game Pass because of its value. Sure, some people are on PC, but console sales here are truly needed to help offset costs. Another option is to offer heavy discounts on newly released games, such as 50% off, instead of offering free games. However, I suspect gamers won't really like that. Now, I'm sure that there are other options.
There's a solution here you're not seeing.
But the way I see it, Xbox really only has one good option left, and that's to raise the Game Pass prices again and again as the years go on. Again, this is not an assumption on my part. Though the future of Game Pass is unknown, it's not necessarily hard to predict certain aspects of its future. Like I previously said, Phil Spencer has made it clear that the price for Game Pass will go up as the years go on. It's inevitable. So going off that, within the next few years, I'd imagine both Game Pass membership tiers raise their prices again. Honestly, it's pretty likely. My ultimate point is this: I don't know if Game Pass can keep providing the value it currently does, especially if gamers begin refusing to pay higher membership costs. Additionally, it's dangerous if more gamers choose to pay for a single month subscription just to play a new game. Apparently, most current subscribers are paying for full yearly subscriptions. However, if gamers just pay for a month to play the game or games they want to play, then cancel, Game Pass revenue will take a hit. It's a vicious cycle. If Game Pass revenue begins to become unsustainable, sustainable for whatever reason, then a price hike will happen. But if there is a price hike, less gamers will like that, likely prompting some members to cancel their Game Pass memberships. Thus, the cycle repeats. Everyone has a breaking point, which is what makes the future of Game Pass so unknown. Sure, it's a great service to have, but it's also what makes Xbox competitive against others in the industry. I personally wouldn't pay over $20 a month for it, but of course some others certainly would.
Shut up and take my money!
But what about $24 a month? What about $28? Eventually, everyone has their breaking point. Xbox may need to get creative on what else they can offer with Game Pass to keep its value proposition to gamers high in the future. To conclude, I don't think Game Pass is going to fail or anything like that. Xbox consistently does one thing well, and it's Game Pass. But at the same time, Xbox cannot sit idly by, raise prices every couple of years, and stay the course. If they want Game Pass to thrive, especially to the point of getting them competitive with PlayStation, then they cannot afford to be complacent. One thing is certain, it's a service gamers don't want to lose, and it's a service Xbox cannot lose. Right now, the future of Game Pass is bright, but it's also unknown. The increased prices are indeed inevitable, as Phil says. So only time will tell whether or not Game Pass will be sustainable in the future. I hope everyone enjoyed watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.